The sacred Trinity. And I don't think that word means what you think it means. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty. This is New Cosmic Knowledge, bringing you what I used to call a revelation, but now I call a download, because I guess I've been new age-ized to some degree. But whatever you call it, revelation, download, we used to call it word of knowledge, or I guess more perfectly, this would be word of wisdom. And we'll still come back with the Melchizedek show by 11, and we have Global Witness tonight. But I wanted to drop this on you because it's very profound to me, and it really just got dropped on me. Had a little life insurance interview, of course, getting married, trying to take care of business. So it's the divine Trinity, the sacred Trinity is what I should really call it. And it should have probably been called the sacred Trinity of relationships, or the sacred Trinity of life, because we've been sold that the Trinity's Father, Son, Holy Spirit. That's a thoroughly non-Christian dogma that they borrowed from other places, but this isn't really here to talk about the Trinity. And I'm going back to my trusty little board. This is the Trinity I want to talk about. And this is the way that the Trinity should be set up. Well, Jeff, it doesn't look like it's, it doesn't look like it's in the right order. It doesn't look like my vocabulary is fleeing me, but it doesn't look symmetrical. And what this is, it's the divine me, or, you'd be thinking about this in a first person, me, and then you, the person that you're with, as we're talking about relationships. So this is the way a relationship should work. This is the way a relationship should be. And this is the way that a relationship can be successful, ladies and gentlemen, is when, from your point of view, this is from your point of view. So I guess that should have been you, but let me just do it this way. I'll do it from my point of view, okay? And we'll make it easy to understand. So we'll do it from my point of view in my relationship. So let's talk about me. Let's talk about me. So I'm going to put J for Jeffrey, and I'll put S for Sandra. And then the D stands for the divine. This is the way it's supposed to work. In Jeffrey's life, the divine has to be number one. And in Jeffrey's life, Jeffrey's got to actually be number two. I know that surprises a lot of you. And Sandra's got to actually be number three. That's the real sacred Trinity as far as the sacred Trinity of relationships. Problem is, this isn't the way most people do it. This isn't the way we've been taught it's supposed to be. This isn't the way that we've been trained from religion, and we've been trained from our mamas and our daddies. We've been trained from our romantic notions. What we think it's supposed to be, and this isn't the way it's supposed to be, and this is the way that I have tried to make it throughout my life, and it doesn't work. You try to say, oh, my partner has to be the most important thing in my life. So Sandra would be on top, right? And then, depending upon how I feel that day, maybe the divine would be next, and maybe I would be over here. Or maybe you put me here, the divine, But the problem is, and I found myself making this statement the other day. I don't know if I said it to Sandra or not, but I made the statement, you're the most important thing in my life. And it sounds romantic. It sounds, sounds like, oh, he loves her so much. But it's a potentially fatal mistake. Here's why. Because if you put Sandra in that top spot, right? Remember, that top spot is really supposed to be occupied by the divine. So it's nice to say, oh, he thinks Sandra is a goddess. Yeah. But do you understand the pressure that you put on that person? When you've got a woman, even a woman as good as Sandra, when you've got a human, even a human as good as Sandra, to put them in the place in your life where the divine is supposed to be, is putting them under an unfair amount of pressure. Because when you depend upon the divine, you can depend upon the immovable, the unshakable, the omnipotent, the omniscient. The divine's always going to know what you need. The divine's always going to have what you need. And the divine is always going to be there for you. The divine will never fail you. The divine will never, ever let you down. The divine will never, ever disappoint you. Pretty much. And you can count on that because the divine is the divine. But if you're putting, in my case, Sandra in that place of the divine, you're the most important thing in my life. Sounds romantic, sounds great. But now I'm putting Sandra in a place that can only really be filled by the divine. Sandra is on her way to being a goddess, but she's not a goddess right now. And if I'm expecting Sandra to provide in my life what divinity provides in my life, I'm setting me up for disappointment and I'm setting her up for failure. And it's an unfair amount of pressure being placed upon a woman. Even if it's a woman that is on her way to being a goddess. So to put Sandra as, or to put your spouse as the most important thing in your life is not fair to them because you're asking them to do something that really can only be done by the divine. And you're looking at them to be divine. And sooner or later, brother, sooner or later, sister, if you expect your spouse to act like the divine, you're going to be disappointed. Sandra's going to do something, say something that is not divine. And when I've got her in that place, I'm automatically disappointed with her. I automatically think she's failed me. When the reality is, I failed her by putting her in that place and putting the expectations of divinity upon her. So the first person that has to be the first place of your sacred Trinity, it has to be the divine. And I'm going to make it a fancier thing, the divine. And the divine has to stay there. The divine has to stay on top because the only thing that you can look to in your life to be unchanging, immovable, immutable, always there, never disappointing you, is the divine. It's the divine. Now, okay, so I don't put Sandra above the divine, but surely I got the divine there. Surely Sandra should fit in this slot right here. And I should be in this slot because I should love Sandra more than I love me. And I should put Sandra above me, right? Makes sense, right? Because Sandra is my fiance. She's going to be my wife. She should be right under God in my eyes. No, that's wrong. It's wrong because it's unfair, it's impractical, and it won't work. Here's why. She can't be the divine because she's not divine. And if I'm looking to take care of Sandra before I take care of Jeff, that's a problem waiting to happen. Because Jeff can't serve Sandra unless Jeff has something in the cupboard. If Sandra was coming over for dinner to the bunker, she's not, but let's say she was coming over to dinner at the bunker today, and I didn't have anything in the cupboards, I didn't have anything in the fridge, and there was no way for me to order anything in for dinner, Sandra would go hungry because there's nothing in the cupboards at Jeff's bunker, right? So if I'm looking to be the best spouse that I can be to Sandra, that means I got to have my cupboard full. I got to have my spiritual cupboard full. I got to have my emotional cupboard full. I got to have my physical cupboard full. Or she's going to go hungry. So as Sandra and I try to say a lot to you, you can't give what you ain't got. How am I supposed to be a great fiance to Sandra if I don't take care of me? And you think it sounds selfish, but divine has to be first. And then Jeffrey has to be second in Jeffrey's life. Because I've got to have this direct connecting source to divinity in order for me to have what I need, right? We have a sacred relationship. And if I want to provide Sandra with the benefits of this sacred relationship, I've got to have a direct connection with the divine, don't I? And I can't be placing her in that place of divine because she's not. So if I want to give divinity to Sandra, I have to have connection with divinity, don't I? And I can't put Sandra here because she's in between me and divinity. And the cupboard can go bare in that case. So Jeff looks to the divine. Jeff receives from the divine. This is a two-way communication, right? Jeff receives from the divine. And then Jeff can give from that place of being filled. Fill my cup, Lord. The old Christian song. Fill it up, Lord. But the divinity is filling my cup. The divinity is filling my cupboards. And once I'm full from the divinity, then I can begin to give over here. And we'll make Sandra fancy too because she's fancy. Then I can begin to give to Sandra, right? And that's kind of I still think of Sandra as divine. I still think of Sandra as a goddess, right? I didn't even think about that, but it's interesting. So this allows me to be in connection with divinity first and foremost. It allows me to give and receive from the divine. And it allows me to give to Sandra. And it's better for Sandra too, because Sandra knows that what she's getting from Jeff has come straight from the divine. Sandra knows that Jeff gets what he gives her straight from divinity. And if you mess this up, if you jumble this up in any way, everybody loses. Everybody loses. And of course, if we really get into it, and I'll get into this a little bit later, then Sandra starts giving back to Jeff because Jeff's giving her divine stuff. And that makes Jeff more like the divine, and that makes Jeff feel better, and Jeff gets more stuff from the divine. And then you've got this mutual three-way bless me club going on. And that's a divine sacred relationship. That's a divine sacred relationship. So you've got to remember, Sandra doesn't go here. That's the place for the divine. And only the divine can be divine. Only the divine can fulfill the divine things. And then this is the place for you or me. This is the place for me. And then this is the place down here for your esposa, for your spouse, for your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your fiance, whatever. And this is the way it has to be if you want it to work. Because if you don't have it this way, it's not going to work long term. It might work for a little while. It might work for some months. It might even work for some years. But if you want your relationships to work, you've got to follow the sacred Trinity of relationships. Your spouse, Sandra, is not the most important thing in my life. The divine and my relationship with the divine is the most important thing in my life. Sandra is not even the second most important thing in my life. The divine is the most important thing in my life. And the second most important thing in my life is my relationship with the divine, making sure I'm filled with the divine and have connection with the divine. Because I've got to give to Sandra. And let me tell you this, if Jeff isn't getting straight from the divine, sooner or later, he's going to run out of stuff to give to Sandra. And Sandra's going to want it from somewhere else. And then all kind of bad things can happen. So don't put your spouse in the divine place. He or she is not the most important thing in your life. The divine is. Don't put your spouse over yourself in this equation, because then again, you're looking to, if Sandra's here, sorry, my OCD's kicking in. If Sandra's here, right, that's Sandra, and I'm here because, oh, it's so holy to put Sandra above me. It's so holy to put Sandra above me. Then again, it's really like thinking that Sandra's still the divine. She's still got to function as the divine in my life, because I'm still looking to her before I look to God, to the divine. And that's not fair to her. And it's also not fair to me, because she can't give me what the divine can. Sooner or later, she's going to fall short. And I'm like, oh man, Sandra fell short. No, Sandra did fall short. She fell short of being a manifested goddess right now, because she's not. And then Jeff gets disappointed. And Sandra can't keep giving to Jeff. And this is my chart, not hers. So when you do it like this, you put Jeff where he's supposed to go. He's getting straight from the divine. And then he's given to Sandra that which comes from the divinity. And everybody gets what they want. And you've got a sacred relationship that works. And if you mess it up, you're going to mess it up. It's just that simple, ladies and gentlemen. It's just that simple. This is the sacred Trinity. And if you want to be more specific, it's the sacred Trinity of relationships. Wow. That, ladies and gentlemen, is some good stuff. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty. This is New Cosmic Knowledge. This is how you unindoctrinate yourself. This is how you create yourself and build a life you'll love. This is how you create a sacred relationship, by following the sacred Trinity. For Sandra D, I'm Jeffrey Daugherty. We're here to work with you. serpentanddove.org, rawreflections.org, jeffreydaugherty.com. We can help you get to where you want to go. Install Fluffy. Give yourself the power that you deserve. Put some MYSTECH on. Get yourself in Schumann resonance. Thank you, Laura. And get your stuff going right. You're the last generation of real humans. Let's get busy, cousin.